Okay, well, I'm going to attempt to do an intro and it's going to be awkward.
Great.
And then we can just jump in. Hi, Claire. Welcome to Mom on the Spectrum.
I'm so excited.
I'm so excited you're here. I'm so excited that it worked out. I love your channel and I'm really glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here.
Okay, so today you and I had decided that we are going to talk about friendship because this is a big topic that comes up in the autistic community. How do we make friends? How do we keep friends? So that's what we're going to dive into today. And then at the end of the video, I have some fun apps that can help with like communication in friendships.
Cool.
Yeah, so if y'all stick around to the end of the video, I'm going to share those because I think those are super helpful. Some of the questions that we're going to be talking about together today are, basically how do you maintain friendships as an autistic person? What does autistic friendship look like? Does it look different than other types of friendships? And what are some of the most important aspects of friendships? What are some of the biggest challenges? We have a lot of things to cover in these pages, Claire. I'm excited to jump into this with you.
Let's do it.
So, Claire, first, before we start talking about friendship, I want to hear a little bit about you. So you said you're in California.
I'm in California.
Okay, and I love your channel. So Claire's from Woodshed Theory, and I love her vibe. So she's super kind and fun, and she randomly sings
3 times a week.
So if you haven't checked out her channel, check it out. But why did you start your channel and what do you love most about it?
Well, I think that a lot of this is going to sound familiar to you. So I was late diagnosed on the autism spectrum and kind of floundering, thinking about like, how do I move forward? What am I going to do? What is my life going to look like now that I know? And I thought I'm going to start a YouTube channel just to talk about my experience and basically build a community of people so that people know that they don't have to feel alone in the experience. And I didn't know what I was doing, but I did it anyway. And
Same here.
I love it. I mean, it's been super eye-opening. I've met some awesome people and I feel like I get to really make a difference in people's life.
I told you before the video, but I love your channel because it has a really positive vibe. It's not like a fake positive, but it's like there's a lot of autistic channels out there that kind of focus on negative stuff. You have like a positive spin on things, right? Because like in
I
autism,
feel like I've got like at least 40 more years left. Like I should at least make the best of it.
Yeah. And like an autism diagnosis isn't like, it's not like a curse or anything. It's just like an invitation to kind of learn how you view life differently. So I appreciate that about your channel. Okay. So the first question that I want to talk about today is what does friendship look like to you? So let's talk about like as an adult right now, what does it look like in your life?
Well, I'd say what I've found that's most helpful for me is finding people who understand my communication style. Basically, I do a lot better in writing. So a lot of my friendships are carried on through text messages, emails, and then I don't put as much pressure on myself to have to like be in person or chat on the phone. Since being diagnosed, I've been able to have much deeper friendships, which has been amazing. Whereas before, like I felt like I couldn't have friends, or like it was a mystery to me why everyone had friends and I didn't, or why does everyone have close friendships and I just have people I consider friends, but like we don't keep in touch and it's like more of an acquaintance.
I think I can resonate with that too. I think for me, a lot of it is like, why are other people hanging out so much together? Like, why do people, and I think especially in my school days is like, why does everybody get together so much? Like, I just want to be in my room and listen to music or play my flute. But, I do have that draw towards wanting connection and kind of that same thing you were saying of like feeling like, why doesn't this work the same way for me that it works for other people? And something you kind of said, I don't know, this is where my brain went with it, but I kind of feel like in a way that like autistic people can almost I don't know if this is fair to say, but like we want to go deeper. Like
Yeah,
we don't want to just stay on the surface and talk about boring things, you know?
right.
Like it's like, hey Claire, nice to meet you. Like, what do you think the meaning of life is? Like,
Exactly.
yeah.
Which for some people is off-putting, and I don't understand why that would be.
Yeah. So I think like you said, knowing I'm autistic has put everything in a really helpful light because now I know like, oh, I like to ask those big awkward questions and I get really frustrated by small talk and I don't understand it. And I think that's why I was put off from especially like school age relationships because I don't know how to small talk. I was just like I took a dance class at a college this semester and I was just in a recital where I was like one of the only 30-year-olds and everybody else was like 18, 19. And I just felt like I was observing everything for the weekend. I was just like, what is happening? I don't know how all these people are talking to each other about nothing.
Yeah, that's hard for me. But then I've learned that if I'm going to communicate with neurotypicals, that I have to like also meet them at their level sometimes. So
That's a good point.
that, yeah, that means that I need to ask them how things are doing and then listen to the minutia. That's just a part of it.
Yeah, my go-to is like, I like your shoes or I like your purse or, and it's like not disingenuine. Like I say things that I mean, but
Yeah.
I don't know how to like make the connection. So I'm like, love what you're doing there, like your fashion sense. So I tend to like comment on something physical to like get
Yeah.
in, if that makes sense. Yeah,
Like a 13-year-old boy trying to flirt with someone.
exactly. That's
Nice
me.
shoes.
Part of what I think makes friendships really hard with neurotypical people is they freaking laugh all the time at things that aren't funny. So like in communication, conversation, people will laugh like loud about things that aren't funny. Like I don't
Hmm.
is this something that you've noticed? Am I making this up?
I've noticed that people think I'm funny, even
Oh,
when
that's
I'm
good.
trying not to be
Oh,
funny.
okay. I
So
see.
like, yeah, I mean, I'm funny,
Yeah, you are.
obviously, but
Obviously.
like I'll just be talking and somebody will be like, "You're funny." And it's like, okay,
Wasn't trying to be.
moving on.
Well, I don't know. I wonder if you'll notice it now because like I feel like that's part of the reason I can't hold people's attention as much in conversations because I think especially women, there's like this, I don't know, assumption that like you're going to laugh at things. I don't know. I maybe people watching this will know what I'm talking about, but it just I don't know how to laugh at something that's mildly funny. Like if I'm going to laugh, it has to be usually kind of like an intellectual joke that was well thought
Right.
out. I don't know.
So it's more like you're mentally saying, "Oh, that was amusing," but you're not giving them the laugh. So it's,
Yes.
yeah, I get it. I get that.
Yeah. Anyways, that's just a musing that I've had lately, like where I'm like, I don't know how to do this laughter thing that other people do when they talk to each other. And I feel like it restricts the flow of communication sometimes. And do you feel like post pandemic? I mean, I know obviously things are still happening, but I feel like because of COVID, things have gotten a little bit easier for communication in terms of like it's more socially acceptable to video chat or to just text or email rather than getting together in person.
Yeah, it's been great. Actually, the group I volunteer with, we like went totally virtual. I'm like, I love it.
Awesome.
Like I don't have to leave my house to go to a meeting. That's been awesome. And I know that a lot of people on the spectrum feel that way, that even though the pandemic is obviously a terrible thing that's happened, the positive for us is that we've gotten to spend more time alone and been able to communicate with people on terms that when everyone else was like, "Oh my gosh, I miss everyone," we were like, "Oh, this is awesome."
Yeah. Question. So let's talk about like pandemic maybe, but you can relate it to current day too. How often would you say like you felt like you needed a friend or that you needed that type of friendship connection?
That's weird too, because sometimes I forget, that like I'm totally doing things on my own and I'm not in the mindset of like, oh, I'm having a problem, let me talk to a friend about it.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe not as often as neurotypical people. Like I'm more apt to just chill by myself. But then I'm always reminded when I do reach out and I do have these conversations with people and build relationships that I feel more at peace. So I think I need more reminding than other people that I should have friends and like share my life with people, because I don't like intuitively go there.
Yeah, I can relate to that a lot because I'm a delayed processor with most things. So like, let's say something is on the calendar and I go out and do something afterwards, I might feel really good and I might feel like, oh, something feels better now than it did before. Like I feel like maybe I have been needing this, but I didn't know. So it is definitely hard because, and that's why I was pulling up some comments that people had left on my Instagram polls. It's like how to navigate a brain that wants friends, but a nervous system that does not, which I thought
Oh,
was
wow.
a really
That's a
good way to
good way to
put
put
that.
it.
There were several things like people said like that in the comments where it's like intuitively, like that you want and need friends, but your nervous system so often is like, there's no way I can leave my house today.
Like I didn't realize, like I had to learn that if somebody's like walks over and it's like, what are you up to? They're asking to join you. Like I didn't know that. Or like if somebody's telling you like, oh, this is what we're doing this weekend, they're probably asking for you to like come along or something. But I would
Yeah.
never assume that as an autistic person.
Yeah.
I'd only know that they wanted a social interaction if they were like, would you like to go? Or,
Right.
hey, I'm here asking to join you.
That makes sense to me too, because it doesn't make sense why someone would just like want to do something very spontaneously with another person. To me, I'm like, that doesn't make sense, because if I'm going to do something with somebody else, I need, it's like if we're going to go somewhere, I like to even look up like what the front of the place looks like, and
Yeah.
I just like, so I guess, when you're saying people asking a question of like, what are you up to? It just doesn't make sense to me that somebody would want to just like join in and do
Right. If
something.
somebody walked up to you and said, like, oh, what are you watching? You would just answer the
To
question.
answer the
You wouldn't
question.
think that they were saying, sit down. Can I sit
Yeah.
down?
No, I wouldn't think that.
Yeah. And that's why we don't have as many friends. So
Which, speaking of not having as many friends, how do you feel about that? Like, do you feel like less is more? Do you wish you had more?
I feel that as far as like number of friends, I'm doing the best that I can. But I also feel like I'm better at setting an expectation now with people. Like I'm not always available, you know?
Mhm.
So I'm okay with only having a few. But as I've gotten better at relationships, especially since my diagnosis, I've been like trying to add more. Like I've been open to adding more people in.
Mhm.
I don't think I was purposefully trying to not have friends before, but now that I know more so how to build relationships, how to have friends, I've been kind of slow going with picking up that responsibility. Because I don't know if you feel this way, but every like friendship, every relationship, I don't know if I should call it is like a weight, but it definitely weighs on me, right? So
Mhm.
if somebody's telling me about their experience or their day, I have trouble separating myself from it.
Yeah,
So it
absolutely.
can be difficult if I have got a friend who's going through a really hard time, not to put that on myself.
Yeah.
So in that way, like maybe fewer is better.
Yeah. I think a lot of people on the spectrum are, have so much empathy that rubs up against what a lot of us think we know about autism, but there's so many people on the spectrum who have that same issue, and me too, where like if I'm interacting with someone else, I feel very strongly, and I'm actually realizing in therapy that a lot of times I feel what the other person is feeling before I
Exactly.
feel what I am feeling. There's a lot of empathy there. It's that, but for me it's also like, if you're my friend, I am invested in you. Like if you are in
Exactly.
my life, like I take it very seriously. It's an intentional commitment that I'm making to you.
Right. And that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. And in a lot of ways, like I feel like I am a really good friend because I feel like I'm very intentional about it, and we've had some comments on that poll about why neurotypical people don't ask as many questions, or they don't communicate the same
Right.
way. And I think that's really hard because that's one thing that I've noticed a lot too, like neurotypical people, whatever that looks like. I feel like they don't ask those questions that push the conversation into something meaningful a lot of times. Maybe that's too harsh of a stereotype.
It's interesting because I don't know if I feel the opposite, where it's like there's like this stereotype that autistic people don't care because we don't ask questions. But I think it's just that we don't ask the small talk questions.
Yes, that's a good distinction.
And I just assume that if somebody has something to tell me, they'll just tell me. Like if it's important, they would just share it. Or what I should say is I've been training myself to make sure that when I'm talking to a loved one or a friend or whatever, I make sure that I ask them how they are. Like I'm asking them the small talk questions,
Mhm.
because I've realized that, especially in neurotypical friendships, you need to give people the space to open up into the things that I'm interested in, like going deeper.
Yeah,
You're not just going to like jump into that like a neurodiverse person. Like you
that's a
have to
good
give,
point.
yeah, you have to give them that
You have to give
opening.
them the little small talk.
But what else is interesting is that I think I've talked about this on my channel a little bit, is that because neurodiverse people jump into the personal so quickly, I think neurotypical people get a false sense of intimacy.
Hmm.
So they think, or maybe everyone in the situation thinks that you're closer than you actually are. And then that causes a lot of confusion as well when it comes to
Hmm.
friendships.
That's a good point too. And another point that I wrote down while you were talking that I think might be the opposite side of the coin from something you were saying. Another thing that I've learned about people on the spectrum is that we can sometimes assume that other people know what we're thinking and feeling. Like we kind of
Right.
assume that we don't need to communicate some things because it should be obvious. And
Exactly.
I think maybe like some of us are so intuitive that we can pick that up from other people and we're doing a lot of that work. But I think we expect it to be reflected back where other people know what we're thinking and feeling. And a lot of times maybe we miss out on that communication of helping them understand where we're at.
Yeah. Friendship. I just think friendship on the spectrum is hard.
It is. It's really hard, but I can imagine I've had a lot of people on the channel say this, just dealing with overthinking. So not only in friendships, like in all aspects of autistic life, but especially friendships where let's say you do hang out with someone and then you get home and then it's just like, your brain's like, I
Yeah.
should have said this, I should have said that.
Delayed processing,
Mm-hmm.
feeling bad about it for the rest of your life. It's just a weight. Like, I don't know how else to describe it, but like any interaction that I'm having with a person, I know I'm going to have to relive it later. Like, I'm going to carry it with me. And the closer I am with a person, the more I'm going to carry. Every so often, like somebody will like sweep into my life and bring like a whole new mood and issues and problems. And they don't know that it's going to be that heavy on me.
Yeah, I can really relate to that.
Yeah.
Because then I'm thinking about the stuff that they're dealing with and like trying to come at it from a different angle and like being able to help them through what they're going through. And it's just, like I said, if we're forming a friendship, like I'm going to take that commitment seriously and be thinking about the things that like you bring to
Like
me.
us.
Yeah, we're connected now. So kind of tying into what you were saying just a second ago, people have been asking, well, I feel like too much with some friends. Like, what do I do about feeling like I'm too much? And, again, what I'm learning in therapy, like those aren't your people. I know that might be hard to hear, but like if somebody feels like you're too much, you're going home and you're overthinking everything. And, every time you're just like really insecure in that friendship, then I think that might sometimes be a reflection of that person just not being someone who's going to really like accept you as you are.
Two thoughts.
Okay.
I don't remember her name, but I saw this like Instagram short, Facebook short of this girl like saying something very similar. Her response was find less. Like those people can find less.
Oh, I like that. Find
Yeah.
less.
When you're on the spectrum, it's very difficult to ascertain like who are your people, because in our minds, like we don't necessarily sense that from people. So it's hard when you can't sense if someone has maybe the wrong intentions, or maybe that somebody isn't the right person for you, or not a good fit for your mental health. Like those are things that we really struggle with as
Mhm.
far as filtering through and finding the best people for us. Instead, we're just like, how about you? I'm sure you're great. I think now I've gone to the opposite end of the spectrum and become like really careful about who I let into my life,
Yeah.
because I'm really good at, just assuming that anybody who wants to be in my life must be a good person or must be the right person for me. But that's
Yeah.
not always true.
Yeah, I feel like I deal with that too. And I don't know, something I'm realizing, I think about the autistic community too. I think a lot of us tend to get stuck in our heads, and rather than feeling how something feels in our body. And I know there's a lot of like interoception difficulties there as well too. Sometimes we can't register alexithymia, can't register emotions. So sometimes we're not actually feeling what this situation is doing to our body. And so it does get hard to trust. It gets hard to trust, is this person good for me, because we're in our head doing all this sensory processing and trying to figure out the dynamics of the communication that we're dealing with. But our body might be feeling some type of emotion that we can't name, that might be kind of like a warning sign, that
Right.
this person isn't really like seeing us or validating us. You had said something early on about like you feel like you're getting better about managing expectations. That's been a big question that's been coming in. How do you manage expectations of a friendship? So do you have any thoughts there, any tips you can share for how you feel like you've been able to manage expectations, not just for yourself, but also for the other person?
Yeah. I used to feel like this, like if somebody was like, can we talk right now? Or let's leave, or let's go out, or I don't know. Like I used to feel like I had to accommodate no matter what, or else lest I lose a friend. Or just making it clear, like, I want to be your friend. I'm here for you. But that doesn't mean you have access to me at all times.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can't be there for you in the moment, like, I'll come back to you, I promise.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I need to focus on my mental health and my personhood first, then I can be a better friend to you.
So
Yeah.
can I ask, like practically, what does that look like? Is that something that you deliver in written communication? Is that more of just like a shared feeling? Do you have any
I
thoughts?
just think, honestly, like I don't know that I've like communicated it, but I feel very differently about it. Where I used to feel like it was hard to have friends because like I'd have to be available. I don't know. It's just so weird because I feel like I didn't have the same kind of friendships before I was diagnosed, because I didn't know that I had a problem. I just knew that it was different than other people.
Mm-hmm.
In that way, it's been less of like me setting the expectations to also letting myself know that like friendships have expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to reach out. Like it has to be two-way. Like
Mm-hmm.
people aren't going to just continuously reach out to me and like build the friendship on their end. Like I also have to be there for other people.
It sounds like you're saying like you're managing the expectations for yourself first and foremost, which kind of
Right.
helps give you a grid for how to navigate the friendship, which I think
Right.
is so important, because it kind of goes back to that. Like if somebody's going to think that you're too much, or if somebody, is not going to be respectful of that, then, that's not your person. Find less, find different, that person can find whatever they need, but might not be like the best fit.
Or in the past, if somebody was reaching out to have a closer friendship with me, I probably didn't know and kind of just ignored it. I don't know, like, I don't want to sound mean when I say that. Like, I just didn't know that that was the expectation.
Right.
And I didn't care
It's
because I
kind
was
of
just kind of
like,
like in my own head.
it's kind of like what we were saying earlier, like when somebody asks, like, what are you watching? It's like, you don't understand that that's an invitation, like they're wanting to watch what you're
When I
watching.
learned that, I was shocked. I was
Yeah.
like, what do you mean they want to hang out with you?
Yeah. So it's kind of like the same thing with friends. Like, unless somebody is pretty explicitly like telling you what they're looking for, like it's kind of hard to pick up on the fact that someone might be wanting to create a friendship.
Right. Like if somebody asked you, like, what are you up to this weekend? I wouldn't think, oh, do they want to make plans with me? That would never cross my mind. Now I have to like step back, think about it, put it through my like neurotypicalese filter, and then hopefully in that moment understand. Or later I'll be like, oh crap.
Yeah,
I think I
that's
missed
me.
it.
So I think that like what you said, like managing our own expectations, I think is the most important thing, because that's a huge question that keeps coming in from everybody is, how do we manage expectations? Okay, first, manage them with yourself. What are you looking for? What can you contribute in a way that doesn't make you feel burnout, which I realize we might not be able to know until down the line, but doing the best you can with your intuition. What can you contribute? What are you looking for? And then in terms of managing the other person's expectations, well, when I say that, we can't manage other people's expectations, but to help them, the other person in the friendship, know what to expect. Something I'm sure that there's a name for this, but something my psychologist has helped me learn about is, it sounds like there should be a fancier name for this, talking through what you're thinking and feeling. So
Right. Not just assuming, like
yeah,
verbalizing. Yeah.
yeah. So you might not even have much to say, which can be kind of tricky, but like, let's say you're just kind of in an awkward place in your friendship or whatever, just say out loud, like, okay, I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable right now. I'm not really sure why, but I know, you could restate your intentions. I know that I value our friendship. I know that you're important to me. Is there something here that I'm not seeing, that I'm not understanding? So I think that's one tool and one aspect that we can really utilize as people on the spectrum for helping other people, is just say what you're thinking, say what you're feeling, ask questions, and that can kind of help the other person better understand where you're coming from.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, so that wraps up part 1 of my interview with Claire over the topic of friendship on the spectrum. Make sure that you've subscribed to both Mom on the Spectrum and Woodshed Theory, and hit the little bell so you can be notified as soon as we drop part 2. It's at the end of that video that I will share the apps that are super helpful in communicating in friendships on the spectrum. Also, if you like my shirt, I may have designed it, and it is available for purchase on the Mott's merchandise website, which I will put a link to in the description. So make sure you check it out. I've got this and other designs that are not cheesy autistic t-shirts. No judgment, but kind of some judgment. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see y'all in part 2. Bye.